Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Unhealthy Podcast, where we dig into all the things that quietly wreck our health, and we try to figure out what to actually do about them in the real world, not just on paper. I'm your host, Uncle Marv, and today we're going to talk about something most people never really, talk about or want to hear from their doctor or their trainer. My guest is Jason Yoon. He is a former gym owner and nutrition coach who did everything right and still ended up burned out, exhausted, and hormonally wrecked. And that crash sent him down a totally different path into circadian rhythm, light, and what he calls Mito hacking. And yes, that is a phrase. That's his phrase, and we'll get into it. And Jason, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me, Mark. Appreciate being on.
All right. Well, thank you for joining. And I do want to go ahead and let people know you are, speaking of circadian health, you are recording outside in nature.
Uh-huh.
So there will be noises in the background. You've got your dog there with you. Where are you at exactly?
I am in New Albany, Ohio. So it's a suburb of Columbus.
Okay. That looks like awfully nice weather for Ohio this time of year.
Well, May, June, July, August, pretty much very nice weather that we get. So we typically have about 3 months where we got awesome weather.
3 months. I can laugh at that because my wife is from there. So she's from a small town just south of Cleveland. So I know about it very well.
Yep.
All right, Jason. Well, you heard me mention at the beginning of the show, you were a former trainer. So tell us, kind of what life was like back then when you were, just a gym owner, and what did your days look like in terms of health? What did you think about it back then?
Okay. Well, I still am a trainer. I just do it out of my home now, but pretty much how my days looked. So it started out as a boot camp type program, because back then it was late 2000s and boot camps were taking off. But eventually I switched it over to more like strength and conditioning. But so it was like a boutique studio. So it wasn't like a gym where you go in any time of the day and work out. So it was classes, and typically my first class started 5:15 a.m. And so I was leaving the house around 4:30 a.m. to get there, set up before the clients get there. Sometimes I was working out before the clients got there. And most of the time I was working out after that first class. So my first classes were 5:15 a.m. and then 6 a.m. And then that would be it until usually 9:45. And then I would have another session of class, 5:30, 6:30, 7:30. So my last class ended at 8:15 p.m. And basically it usually took me a half an hour to get home. And part of the reason was because one of the reasons I did shut the gym down was because I moved. And it's like a 30-minute drive to my studio. And sometimes I was driving there 3 times a day. So,
wow.
A lot of time in the car, which isn't good. So sitting is, I call it one of the new smokings as well. But, so I would start my day off with there. I typically would eat as I was driving. So I would usually make like a morning smoothie. I would typically make it the night before. It was typically like a big smoothie. So it was like 2 meals in there. So it was like 1,500 calories or so. But then after my last class, it would take me like a half hour to get home. So I'd usually get home around 9:10, somewhere around there. And then I would start fixing my dinner. And usually I would eat dinner probably 9:45 to 10. And then bedtime was 10:45, which is absolutely horrible for your gut health, your sleep, your metabolism. So I have a rule that I've since learned since becoming more circadian focused and Mito hacking is when the sun is up, the kitchen's open. When the sun is down, the kitchen is closed. And that rule kind of also applies to the gym. So, obviously I
Well,
was
let me ask you real quick. When
okay.
you said that that was unhealthy, was it the eating late before you went to bed? Because you said that right after you said bedtime is around 10:45, and that was unhealthy. Was it the timing of all of that, or was it just eating late?
It was both.
Okay,
So yeah, the timing of pretty much everything is the most important thing. So if the cells can't communicate on time, then things are going to start to go haywire. Um, so yeah, typically you want at least, let's say, to, to start at least 3 hours, uh, 4 hours if possible. Um, but for some people that it's it's too big of a jump. So, but eating right before bed is a great way to, because digestion is like one of the most important processes that we have. So a lot of other processes are shut down in order to digest and assimilate all the nutrients in the food and what we just ate. So sleep, we can't get into the deeper stages of sleep um, when we eat so close to bedtime, because
gotcha.
our master hormone is called leptin, and leptin basically wants to tell the energy status of the body. But when there's food in there, it can't really do anything. It's got to digest that food. So basically, your body wants to burn fat, but if there's like glucose or there's protein in there and it's trying to digest, then we can't get into like stage 3, stage 4 sleep, which is like the recovering sleep, REM sleep, and deep sleep. So
All right.
yeah.
All right. So I imagine that some of that was stuff you learned later, but before then, as you were doing the workouts and stuff, you were just, was the workout type stuff, you know, kind of like the gym bro stuff, or the CrossFit type thing that was super popular around that time?
Um, I never did the CrossFit. I'm not a fan. Still not a fan. Uh,
Okay.
it was it started out when I started the boot camp. It was basically just high intensity interval training. So
Okay.
um, it was basically like a circuit of something. So like 5 exercises, 30 seconds on, 30 seconds off. So one station you do push ups, another station you do squats, another rows, another station mountain climbers or burpees or something like that. But then we kind of moved away from that and got into more strength and conditioning um, type work. Um, so basically, like there would be like 4 or 5 main exercises, and you would just cycle through that. You can either go back to back to back to back, 5 exercises in a row, or you can do one exercise, do one set, rest, do another set, rest, do another set, rest.
Okay.
So it was
So
basically,
kind of
yeah,
similar to what we would do. So I did play sports growing up and really heavily into, football and basketball in high school. And we did a lot of the intensity training
yep,
and sets, multiple sets and just do all of that. And then I didn't play when I got into college, but I still kept up that routine, still went to the gym and still tried to do a lot of that stuff.
hmm
Although I didn't pay attention to other things healthy in my life. I didn't really pay attention to my food because I was, my metabolism was so high. I was just burning stuff off. I couldn't keep weight on.
yeah,
So I wasn't worried about stuff like that.
yeah.
So what types of other stuff were you doing besides the workouts that at least at the time you thought were healthy?
Um, well, I was really big into nutrition, so um, I started into the bodybuilding phase. I think it was my sophomore year. I watched Arnold's Pumping Iron
Hmm.
documentary, which I still believe is his best movie. Um, but that really got me hooked on getting bigger and whatnot. And my sophomore year, I went from I think I was 167. I went from 167 to 222 in 7 months. No drugs or anything.
Wow.
Yeah. So I still got the stretch marks to prove it. So, um, but that kind of diet's very unhealthy. So it was very high carbohydrate, high protein, very low fat. So I was brainwashed into thinking that fat is the enemy, cholesterol is the enemy. It's going to give me heart disease, all that stuff. So pretty much all my protein was basically egg whites, tuna fish, shrimp, chicken breast, and like egg beater substitute kind of stuff. Yeah, and it was very high carbohydrate. So if it was a high carbohydrate food, low fat food, I was going to eat it because I thought it was good. I mean, I was eating pancakes and thinking they were good for you because it was
Right.
super high carbohydrate and super low fat. But yeah, so I've followed the bodybuilding plan for a while. And then eventually I moved over to eat. Well, while I was on the bodybuilding diet, I actually, right after I got through college, I went through a severe depression, severe anxiety, thoughts of suicide pretty much weekly. Um, yeah, and I actually got injured my back deadlifting, and I lost, I think it was 70 pounds over. Well, it took me 9 months to recover from it, but I lost probably like 50 pounds in the first 3 months, and then another 20 so shortly after, which really put me down in a deep spiral because my whole life was based on just lifting and being big and all that stuff. So, yeah, but eventually I got out of that, just doing a bunch of mindset stuff, Tony Robbins, The Secret, all that stuff. And then I eventually opened up the business, and that's when I found the paleo diet, and I started getting in on that. And then I eventually switched to the keto diet and then nutritional cleansing. And then I got into supplements and whatnot and started introducing that to my clients and all that stuff. But pretty much it was mostly fitness and nutrition and supplements. And that's what I thought you needed to be a healthy person. But I found out I was dead wrong. So,
Okay. I'm going to ask a personal question. You said you hurt yourself during the deadlift. Was it, were you doing the pure deadlift? You know, like how much were you doing? Was it set work or are you just trying to max out?
it was set work. Yeah, I remember it was right after, it was '04. Right after we came back and beat the Yankees in the ALCS. So I hadn't deadlift for a while before that, and I was just something just popped in me, and then I was wearing a belt, and it was 365, and then on that third rep, I just felt boom, a pop in my back, and it was
Okay.
it was
I got my answer because I remember doing some deadlifts and I can't remember the exact number, but between deadlifts and squats, there was a 465 number in there somewhere. I don't remember which was which, but I don't do either of those anymore.
yep.
So,
Stopped doing those. Those are
okay.
yeah.
So now let's talk about, so you got injured, and now was that the time that you kind of started reevaluating some of the healthy things that you were doing? Or when did you go through, you know,
Well, that was kind of my first sickness. So when you're younger, fitness and nutrition and supplements can help you more because
right.
you're younger, you recover faster, and all this stuff. But as I always say, it's basically just like a Band-Aid, and eventually like the stuff underneath the Band-Aid is going to start gushing out, especially as we get older. But it was probably I opened my business in 2007, so I would say probably around 2015 I started feeling it. Basically just energy problems throughout the day, sleep problems, because my classes was Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I was waking up at 4:30 a.m. and then the other times I was sleeping until like 7 or 8. So just an irregular sleep wake cycle, which is ultimately just a huge circadian mismatch for your health. But 2015, and it started getting worse and worse, and probably around mid 2018, I started looking elsewhere for other information, and that's when I found Dr. Jack Cruz again for the second time. I originally found him in 2013. I read his book and everything, but back then I was feeling fine, okay. So I didn't feel I needed it. So I dropped his stuff after probably like 2 or 3 weeks. But as the quote goes, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear, or in my case, reappear. So I went wholeheartedly into his stuff. So he's got 2 presentations on YouTube that I still consider like the best health talks ever. It's his 2016 and 2017 Nourish Vermont talks. So they're free. You can look them up. I probably had to watch probably the 2017 one probably 8 or 9 times before I actually did anything. Because I mean, it was such a big kick in the balls to the fitness and to the nutrition and to the supplement industry. But once I did, the turnaround was real fast. So I had like upside down cortisol, melatonin. So in the morning, cortisol is supposed to be higher, melatonin is supposed to be non-existent, and then later on, melatonin is supposed to start to rise, and cortisol is supposed to be non-existent. But mine was kind of like upside down. So I was having like midday crashes and whatnot, and having to take naps before classes and whatnot. But yeah, so that once I started implementing what he was talking about, and I even did it wrong, but like 3-4 weeks, I felt remarkably better. And then I eventually course corrected, and then probably another 4 weeks after that, I feel like I was almost 180-degree turn with my health and sleep and whatnot.
Now, it sounds like you were a little skeptical, although you were probably grasping at some straws. So in terms of, what you had tried, were you doing anything hormone-wise then, or were you just trying to figure out the diet, figure out, okay, maybe I have to adjust my workouts? Had you gone through all of that other stuff? Did you seek any medical assistance for, the fatigue?
No, I did not. Fortunately, I did not have health insurance. I didn't have it when I went through depression and anxiety, and I am actually thankful that I did not, because if I did, I'd probably be in that merry-go-round of, hey, you've got depression, go on whatever it is.
Take this cocktail of pills.
Yeah, take these pills and you stay on them and whatever. So, so did not seek medical intervention. So I've always tried to do things on my own, find things and implement them, and then try it. If it doesn't work, then try something else and keep going from there. But yeah, I didn't really tinker too much, because I thought I had the perfect diet. I thought I had the perfect workout routine. I mean, that's what my routine was based around, what like the experts were saying. My nutrition was based around what the experts were saying.
Right.
So yeah, so it was just, I was my late 30s, and I was just owning a health or a fitness company, and people coming to me to fix their health, and my health is crashing. And so that was just unacceptable to me. So I just needed to find a new route. And I mean, the turnaround was real quick, and I started implementing some of the stuff I was learning as I was learning into my business as well. So,
okay. What do you think was the first thing that really kicked in and said, okay, this is working?
Well, probably my biggest problem was probably the naps. So like driving to my afternoon classes, I was basically like having a boxing match or a slap match with myself to keep myself awake. So I would usually leave like 10-15 minutes early so I can park in the next plaza's parking lot to take a nap before going into my class. That went away pretty fast. I'd say 2 to 3 weeks. And yeah, then everything started getting a little bit better than that, because I kept implementing a little thing here, a little thing here. And I mean, he's got like blogs going back from like 2012. So I mean, I was constantly reading, constantly watching his stuff, and just learning and implementing, and learning and implementing, and then researching that and implementing that. And yeah, so I would say those naps going away was significant. My sleep obviously improved from there since I didn't need those naps anymore.
All right. I'm going to have to get a link from you. Every time I try to do a search for him, he comes up with somebody else's YouTube channel. So I'm going to find the right link to get to his channel. I was trying to do that.
Okay.
Just for the listeners, we will have the correct link in the show notes so you can go to those videos yourself and pay attention.
Yeah. And I actually put his talks on my YouTube channel. So
Okay.
it's sun.yun.jason.
All right. We'll have a link to that as well. We should probably go ahead and talk about your website. We're probably going to have a couple more things. We're going to go into a part 2 because I want to get to some other discussions. I want to talk about the Mito hacking, but we still haven't gotten to the full circadian rhythm, so I want to finish that. But your website, improvementwarriorfitness.com, is the main site there. I guess real quick, tell us about the website, and then we'll come back to your story.
Okay. Well, I mean, the website is where you can find everything that I do. So, like I said, I still do training just out of my home. I do online training as well through a Facebook group. But all my stuff is there. You can get on the newsletter. That's probably the best way to interact with me. I'll tell you everything that's going on. I do have my own podcast. You can find that there. All the services I do, it's mostly circadian coaching through Zoom, what I do. So either one-on-one or group and that kind of style. So yeah, that's what you'll find on the website there.
All right. And people should probably note that there is actually an adult schedule and a youth program on there as well. So.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. All right. So here's the website, folks. Improvement Warrior Fitness. Now, if we go back to when you came across Dr. Jack Kruse, you started following his advice, and things started to turn around for you there. Had you known about circadian rhythm before then, or was that your introduction?
Well, like I said, I originally found him in 2013, so that was my original introduction. And I listened to the Ben Greenfield podcast a lot, so I probably got my first blue blocking glasses probably around 2015 or 16. Yeah, so I knew about circadian rhythm. Just like surface stuff. I didn't really know like deep stuff like I know now.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, what I was going to ask next is, because you talked about it in terms of, the schedule, sun up to sundown and the sleep schedule. What does circadian rhythm mean beyond the sleep schedule?
Well, basically we humans, animals, are governed by a 24-hour cycle. The sun goes up at a certain time of the day and it goes down at a certain time of the day. And then that changes throughout the year. But what's going on inside your body is certain hormones, certain processes, certain proteins. They've also got a circadian rhythm as well. And circadian rhythm it's pretty much dictated by nature's three-legged stool. So that's light, water, magnetism. So light is typically the biggest driver. You can probably also throw temperature in there as well. But light is probably the biggest driver, especially when the sun is like strong, like it is now in the beginning of June. Yeah. So in our body, we've got a bunch of clocks. So everybody knows that the eye can see, so it's like a camera. But the second function is the clock function, and that's the more important function. So in the eye is the master circadian clock. It's called the suprachiasmatic nucleus, or SCN for short. And that clock has to run faster than all the other clocks in the body. So if it doesn't, it's kind of like there's in your phone, there's a GPS when you use like Waze or Google Maps. To get somewhere, that GPS in the sky has to run faster than your phone, like microseconds faster. If it doesn't, you're going to end up miles away from where you're trying to get. So, but in your body, if one clock starts running a little slower, that's when inflammation is going to start to occur. And if you let that keep going, then the inflammation is going to turn into like symptoms of like energy loss, and then symptoms of a disease, and then eventually the full-blown disease. And then depending on where you have that, so if it's like your heart or your brain, that's going to be a major issue because it's going to affect everything else, so to speak. But yeah, so like the eyes, I always talk about having naked eyes when you're outside. So no sunglasses, no contacts, no eyeglasses. If you do have eyeglasses, just pull them down so you can get that, let the sun get in. Because the amount of UV ultraviolet light that the eyes pick up on, that tells the skin how much melanin to make to basically protect your skin. So you don't need to wear sunscreen or stupid stuff like that, and you don't get burnt.
So trying to mesh this with today's living style. I mean, we have, of course, with the invention of the light, we don't have to stop when the sun goes down, which is probably one of the things that probably changed us the most when it comes to that.
Yeah.
But there's so many other things now. I mean, just, staying up late with artificial light and, being able to watch TV and, even YouTube. I mean, we talk about YouTube a lot, but we can just do stuff 24/7.
Correct.
And people have gotten used to this over the years. How has that affected the way we look at health and wellness at this time?
Well, I mean, it's obviously the disease rates have been skyrocketing. And I mean, ever since 2000, when they introduced the cell phone, I think Wi-Fi came 1999 or something around there. So they just kept adding more and more stuff. So originally it was like 2G phones. Now we're up to 5G. They're already testing 6G in certain places. And so as those types of frequencies get worse and worse, or as the technology companies, what is it, Samsung and Apple and all that, they'll say the technology is better. It may be better, it may be faster, but it's worse for our biology. So our mitochondria basically, we're adjusted to what's known as the Schumann resonance. So the Schumann resonance is basically Earth's heartbeat. It's Earth's magnetic field. So it typically goes at around 7.83 hertz. Okay. So we'll just call it 8 for ease. So think of it like 8 cycles per second. That's what we're in tune to. So, and 7.83 hertz is also the alpha wave of our brain, which a lot of people can't access anymore because they've always got wireless technology on their heads. But 8 hertz, 8 cycles. So if you think about Wi-Fi runs on either 2.4 gigahertz or 5 gigahertz. And the thing is, most people have both of them on at the same time. So it's 7.4 billion cycles per second. So you got a gigahertz versus a hertz. So 7.4 billion cycles per second compared to 8 cycles per second. That's what we're used to. But then when you bombard us with all these frequencies, it basically just, like I said before, the timing in the cell is the most important thing. So if that timing or the communication gets off, it's like, how many people are going to continue to listen to this podcast if they can only hear every 4th or 5th word? Not too many. So they're not going to get the message. They're going to get a partial message. So things will break down. You get cellular chaos. And from cellular chaos, it's like a domino effect. Energy loss, sleep issues, disease, full-blown disease, and then early demise, so to speak.
Okay. So for all the people listening that kind of glossed over when you started talking about Hertz and all of that stuff. If we were to try to put some simple things into kind of a first step for people that, you know, somebody's exhausted, they know that they're, or, doing everything right, but it's still not working. What is the first circadian tweak that you might recommend to somebody?
Well, I always say the most important circadian thing, the most important thing for health is seeing the sunrise. So seeing it with naked eyes, no sunglasses, no contacts. If you do have those glasses, pull them down or off. So we let that light come in. And when the sun rises, there's no UV, so you can look directly at it. But if you do look directly at it and you see it's still too bright, you start blinking up, you start tearing up. That just means you're blue light toxic. So you're like a modernly adapted human, which is perfectly fine. That's how I was. You basically just have to look away until you can not squint, not tear up, and then eventually those eyes will get stronger and stronger. That's what the sunrise does is basically when the SCN, the suprachiasmatic nucleus, sees it, it basically is it's a timing mechanism to turn on certain hormones. Cortisol starts rising properly to help wake you up. All the sex steroid hormones, testosterone, estrogen, pregnenolone, progesterone, and even the precursor for vitamin D starts rising in that moment. So seeing the sunrise, most important thing, and it basically also turns on the fat burning process inside of us. So beta oxidation occurs at sunrise, because otherwise you do have to, if you don't see the sunrise, basically you have to do like the bro science. You've got to watch your macros, you got to watch your calories, you got to do the proper exercise, all that stuff to burn the fat and look like.
Does this mean, watching the sunrise, like literally as it's coming up over the horizon? Because a lot of people are going to say, well, I really can't see the sunrise because of
Yep.
whatever reason, and they've, got to go out and find it and stuff. So how
Yep.
much of a time period between the actual sunrise and, once it starts to get up there can we use?
There's an app I use called Sun Position Demo, and also a circadian friend of mine, Sarah Kleiner. She has a circadian app, which is a subscription based, but it's got a lot more information in there. But basically, it'll tell you when sunrise starts, when UVA comes out. So that's typically when sunrise will end. Once the sun gets over 10 degrees, that's when UVA comes out. And then when UVA does come out, that's when other benefits start occurring. And typically in both of those apps, they'll tell you like there's a golden hour. So typically if you can get the sunrise, typically it's like the first 25, 35 minutes, it depends on where you are. That if you can get the sun and see the sun there, because I live in a preserve, so there's woods behind me, woods in front of me. So I typically have to walk about 7 minutes to get to my spot. But yeah, some people have to drive to it. But it's once you start doing it and seeing the benefit, and you become a different person. It becomes part of your life, and you don't skip it. I don't skip it. So
All right.
yeah, the only time I've skipped it in the last since doing this was because of Southwest and their BS.
Good old airlines. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. I want to go ahead and get us to start shifting to Mito hacking, but I want to ask one last question, then we'll take a break and go on to part two. Am I correct in understanding that you are pretty much teaching circadian rhythm first, then food, then exercise? Is that, kind of how you're looking at things?
It really depends person to person.
Okay.
So when somebody comes in, there's a very detailed questionnaire I take them through. So I basically want to know everything about their environment. I want to know about their mom or their grandma. Their past history with food, disease, vaccines, all that stuff. So yeah, but usually I will start with one aspect of circadian rhythm. So I usually pick like 3 things to work on, and circadian rhythm is usually in there. Very,
Okay.
very often it's there's, so it's usually in there.
Okay. All right. Well, Jason, I think this will be a good time to take a quick break, let people go about their day, and then come back for part 2 of our discussion, where we'll get into the Mito hacking. We'll talk about, I guess, a contrarian take on light and some of the other stuff you got going. So, folks, thank you for tuning in. We'll be back again with Jason Yoon right in the very next episode. So don't go far. We'll see you soon.